Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of King Arthur and the Lady of the Lake. My name is Michael Laurier, and once again, my beautiful co-host, Helen Glover. And today we're going to talk about superficiality of dating. And I know, Helen, it's been a while since it's been a while since I've dated. I've been married now for 6 years this year. And so I haven't dated for that long, at least. And so, but having said that, I've had plenty of experience dating in the past. And this was really motivated. We decided to do this today because I created a post on Facebook the other day for men around relationships, sex, dating, and there was something else as well. And it got quite a bit of interaction from both men and women. And it's such a polarizing thing because women seem to want, from a man's perspective, from a lot of men's perspective, women seem to want this lofty standard in terms of wealth, physical appearance, etc., status, etc., etc. And men are feeling this ridiculous amount of pressure to show up at a level that is inauthentic. And so we seem to get people putting on facades and these high expectations. And I think part of it is avoidance. People are scared of getting into relationships, so they set these really high expectations because they've been hurt so many times in the past. And the other part of it as well is that, maybe men don't feel worthy just as they are. And so they have to put all the airs and graces on and, turn up like James Bond when they can't maintain that for the long term. So very interested about having this discussion with you, Helen, and I'm sure lots of other people would love to comment on this as well. What's your perspective?
Well, I have been single for about 5 years now,
Yep.
on and off. I've had a couple of relationships, but yeah, it's funny. I find that there's two sides to it. Women who are fake boobs, fake lips, fake eyelashes, and men are saying like, oh my God, like they just come and they're not even, it's all very fake and the conversation's all kind of really high pitched. And then I speak to women who are like, oh my God, where are all the good men? Like, this guy, this, and all these stories. And so I see loads of people out there looking. Like, the dating sites create multimillionaires every day. Everybody who creates a new dating app instantly becomes a millionaire.
Yep.
Because there's thousands and millions of people out in the world looking for love. And yet we can't seem to get there. It's like men are, this is something that's interesting because we're looking at pictures online about who we want to be with.
Ooh, Helen.
Well, I think men are looking for a particular look of woman, and women are looking for a particular look of man. And then when they go out to those, they're actually finding what they don't want.
Yeah.
Because it's inauthentic, it's not genuine, it is based on an appearance situation. So you're not really getting what it is that you want. Whereas really what we do want is we want to feel cared, seen, loved, respected, all of the things that create longevity within a relationship that actually make us feel good when we wake up on a morning in the arms of that person. So it's really interesting to see that we are meeting people on appearance, but we're wanting something way beyond appearance to fulfill us as people.
So what we're really looking for is a depth of connection that we can have with that one person that we don't necessarily have with anybody else. And isn't it interesting? Because I'm convinced that people don't do this stuff intentionally. I'm sure that people are not out there just being superficial, right? And it's like, I'm only going to date him or her if he has this kind of physique and this kind of income, or she has, that kind of appearance, or this color hair, or that size boobs, or whatever the case may be. I just want to convince myself that people are not that superficial. However, you do see it out there. I've spoken to men who have said, got to be at least this size bust, right? Or this size 12 or size whatever size they choose, right? Otherwise, obviously, she doesn't look after herself.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
Like, wrap it up in that where it's really
meanwhile,
sexy, I
Helen,
find it attractive.
yep. Meanwhile, Helen, this is a guy who has a bit of a beer gut and man boobs, right? Who's putting these expectations, and so this is where I kind of go: are our expectations too high of this superficial aspect of human beings? And then on the flip side of that, but closely related, we feel all this pressure to live up to these lofty expectations. And so what happens is that then we put on the airs and graces and we put on masks and we show up differently and inauthentically and in a disingenuous way. And it's doomed from the beginning, because what we're actually doing, even on the first date, is we're showing up as somebody that we're not.
Yeah.
And eventually that's going to unravel over time. Second, third, fourth, fifth date, there's only so many times somebody can afford to hire a Ferrari or a Lamborghini for the date and buy 24 roses and wear an Armani suit, So this is one of the things that I've noticed in men, is that they go to the nth degree they'll either go to the nth degree or they'll do nothing, right? And they'll show up in jeans and a t-shirt and go, oh, well, this is how I am. If you like me, then you can like me. If you don't want to like me, that's fine, right?
Which is this defeatist attitude that,
they set themselves up for failure straight away, right? Because of course, if a woman turned up like that, right? If you like me, you like me in whatever, and didn't actually put any effort into her appearance, and a man shows up and doesn't actually put any effort into his appearance, it's going to be the same thing, But I think there's a good middle ground where you go, how would I dress up if I was going out to dinner with my friends, in the city, for instance? And that might be how you might go to a first date. But I think people have got these,
yeah. But there's a vulnerability piece in here as well, isn't there? It's about, I'm going to go and I am going to represent who I am. And so I'm not going to nod and smile about something that I don't agree with. I'm not going to pretend that that's my opinion if it's not my opinion. I am going to show who I am. I am going to say what I'm interested in.
And I am scared of doing that, Helen.
I think people really are. I think you end up having these conversations and people are like either really nodding and smiling and going, yeah, wow, or they are kind of like, well, I don't do that. Like there's no middle ground. And there's so much history, isn't there, here with men and women? When you come into this date, there's a social narrative around what men are like and what women are like. And I think you're almost meeting on that ground before you meet anywhere else. And I mean, obviously, I go on some dates, but not very many, to be honest, because I can't do small talk. I find it really difficult.
Neither can I.
Small talk.
It drives me crazy.
I'm just like, yeah.
Can we move on now, please? Is it dessert yet?
Yeah. And as well, I'm a single woman with 4 children. I have a complex life. I run my own business. So, as well, I'm looking for qualities of somebody who's going to love that about me, who's going to be confident in their own skin. And so as well, you're looking for people to arrive across the table from you that have their own level of confidence.
Yep.
So that's
Let me ask you a question.
quite difficult.
Let me ask you a question, Helen. Who do you think makes the majority of the choices in the dating, let's call it the dating cycle? Let's say from when you first meet someone and you ask them on a date, and let's just say that that the chivalrous thing happens, right? And the man kind of leads and he asks the woman on a date. Who do you think has all the choices and chooses to say yes and chooses to continue the relationship, or chooses everything along the way?
Well, I think it depends on who's into who and whether it's reciprocated. I think the frustration that I feel is that I get fed up of making all the decisions. I make all the decisions.
I'm talking I'm talking about the choices on progressing the relationship. So let's just say, for the sake of this discussion, that you and I have met out somewhere, right? And I've asked you out on a date, or I've said, I'd like to get to know you more. Would you like to go out to dinner with me, right? And so in that moment, and I've actually written about this in my book, and I just want to, I want to bounce this off you because I think this is relevant to this discussion, right?
Mm,
So you have the choice in that moment to say yes or no
mm,
as the woman, right? And so let's just say you say yes and you've made the choice. And so we go on a date, and then we get to the end of the date, and I say to you, I'd like to catch up again, right? Let's do this again.
mm.
And then you've got another choice. And you can say yes or no. Let's just say you say yes, right? We go on a second date, and whatever happens, but at some point along the road, you've thought, oh no, this is not for me, or no, I don't want this, or no, whatever it might be. Then you call an end to it, right? But I still want to pursue it, because this is men usually, right? Men will usually pursue because men can be in those areas, they can be quite primal,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Quite primal, and not really thinking about the long-term stuff. Whereas women are thinking about the long-term stuff. They're thinking about, is he going to be a good role model for my children? If the shit hits the fan, can he step up and lead? Is he decisive? Is he confident? Is he this? Is he that? Right? Most of the time, and I'm generalizing here, but most of the time, men are like, is she going to turn me on?
mm, mm.
And
Yeah.
that's the extent of their reasoning in this, right? And
Mm.
so where I'm going with this is that women hold all the power to make the choices in this process, right?
Don't
In the
agree.
right. You don't agree?
No.
You don't agree.
I
All right.
don't agree, because I think there's so many things at play here. What I have found from meeting, and I mean, clients as well. I'm not just talking about, like I say, I rarely go on dates because I can't really be bothered, to be honest.
Yeah.
But when I meet men and I talk about these kind of things, I see men in three different stages. I see them in the kind of young man stage, where they're anytime up to age 40, where they're kind of like wishing that they were single, but they're in a relationship, and so they're a bit flirty and wondering what it would be like to be single. Then there's the man that's divorced and going through that kind of like stage of like, I'm just going to play the field because I've been with a partner for this amount of time. And so it doesn't matter how much I like you right now, I'm playing the field. And so I'm going to call no on whatever it is. And the woman is normally ringing me up going, oh my God, I really liked him and he won't return my calls. And oh my God. And so he's made the decision there, and he knew exactly what he was doing all along, but she didn't get the memo on that. And then there's the guy that has gone through that stage, who now he feels quite alone. And he really does want a companion, and to have that feeling that he had back when he was with his family. And he wants to be able to watch TV with somebody at night, or to go for dinner. And he's kind of at a different stage in life now where he's looking for something else. And that's the stage where I find that they're the pursuer, and the woman is kind of like, oh, I'm not sure about this guy, and they're the runner. So there seems to be different stages where men call the shots, and then different stages where women call the shots. But ultimately, what we would like to think is that if there's chemistry between two people, that then it remains, and that it's only ever called off because the chemistry is lacking for one or the other. And therefore it's right to call it off. You shouldn't be leading a man on if you're getting something from it that's not genuine. If it's just to go out to dinner and he's paying, but you're not really interested, you shouldn't be doing that. If it's a guy and he just wants to have sex with you, but he's got no interest in who you are as a person, then unless this is the agreement that people are making, look, I want a companion and I don't mind taking you out for dinner, I'll pay. Or you look, actually, I just want a casual relationship because I don't want to be involved right now. All of that is adult discussion. But really, ultimately, everybody's looking for a chemical reaction where there's a chemistry between you.
Yeah.
And really, it should be more about, how does this person leave me feeling?
I agree.
How do I feel when I leave this person? Not, is he going to do this? Is he going to do that? Has he got money? Has he turned me off in a nice car? Not like, has she got big boobs? Has she got a great bum? It should be like, how do I feel when I've left the company of this person?
I agree with you, but do you think most people feel and think that way?
Everybody's looking for that, Michael, though.
Everyone's looking. No, I'm not. That's not the question, though, right? I know we know what people are looking for, but how do you think they are behaving? Because this is what I observe, and we're going to have to agree to disagree on who leads the charge. The men I know, men I think it doesn't matter at what stage in their life or their process they are, they're always pursuing, and they're leading only in the pursuit.
But
if
are they
that person,
the same woman?
no, often no, right? Unless they're at the third stage, which you were talking about, which is like then they want a depth of connection, yet they are still pursuing. So you look at this, right? Up until their 40s, you had a judgment around that, Helen. Men up until their 40s, that was a judgment, Helen. And so not everyone in their 40s fits into that. Not every man fits into your teenage boy category, right? Up to 40.
No, I mean the people who are like looking in the dating scheme we're talking about.
Okay, but men are pursuing, right? And then it's like then you talked about that stereotypical divorced man who's been in a long-term relationship. Now he's playing the field, still pursuing, right? And then the next stage is he's over all of that and he wants to settle down. So now he's still pursuing, right? Just for different reasons. There's different motivations behind it, but he's still pursuing. And where I'm going with this whole part of the discussion, in my estimation, what I've observed in talking with men is that if they have their eyes on a woman and they've gone, well, she's interesting and I want to get to know her, or whatever it is, whether it's I want to get to know her or I want to have sex with her or I want a companion or whatever it is, the man is usually pursuing at the beginning stages, and then there's either an agreement to continue by both of them, or generally what happens if the man's interested and it doesn't go anywhere, it's because the woman has called it off, right? That's both my experience and what I've observed in men. And so when I say women control the process, I don't mean that in a way where they're controlling within that process. It's like if a man finds you interesting, he's going to be like a bulldog, unless you make it clear that no, buddy, this is not happening. And so that's where I'm going with that. But it's okay that we disagree. We've disagreed on things before.
But I suppose where I'm sitting with it is the guy who pursues somebody purely for the sexual experience.
It's still a pursuit. It's still a pursuit.
And the woman wants to get the phone call for the next few days and wants to see them again, and the man's gone.
But is that about effective communication around what is this?
Well, I think that maybe look, I feel like like you say, there's this judgment thing where I'm thinking for people here, and that's not right. There's hope, I think, for a lot of women when they meet a guy. There's hope. And there's that real need to feel that connection to the masculine. And
so why do you think many women have such lofty standards of men in the dating scene these days?
I think we've done a thing on this before where it's a lot of media-driven stuff, isn't it? As to the kind of person that you should have beside you, the kind of person who's impressive. And it depends on the person themselves. So if they are into personal appearance and into kind of like, oh, looking after myself, and therefore you need to be looking after yourself and all that kind of stuff. If you're that person, then you're looking for that in your mate.
Yeah.
If it's important to you, you're looking for it. So it depends whether you're living at an egoic level, whether the kind of false appearances and just what status looks like, if that's your driver in your life, then that's what you're looking for in a partner. Yeah. If you are kind of successful and seen as successful and you're quite wealthy and everything else, well, both the man and the woman in that will be looking for that equal mate that kind of completes that picture. the handsome boyfriend or the good looking kind of, well, it was coined, wasn't it, the trophy wife that went along with the successful guy, and now there's kind of that handsome toy boy that goes along with the older successful woman. Like it's played upon because it's true. And then you've got a whole bunch of other people who just want to meet somebody really nice who's going to treat them really well. So we're not all looking for the same things. It's a reflection of who we are in our own life. So if you meet somebody who's not a good communicator, generally, if you connect with them, then you're not a great communicator either. Neither of you are really talking about what you want. And so that can make things a bit more difficult about creating the boundaries. Also,
there's so many. Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, there's a lot, isn't there? There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of roads we could go down here with this. I think a really good path to take in this is, because I could talk all day about how many men are very wary of being led down this path, right? And then to the point where they're living with someone, perhaps they have kids, and then things fall apart and they lose everything, right? So there's that, because that's an item, that's a topical thing in the discussion at the moment out there in society.
Coach, so that's who I deal with.
Yep, exactly. Then there's the other part of it where women have lofty, higher than, say, average expectations, much higher, like lofty expectations on men. And that comes from a place of resentment and bitterness, because the men that they have been with in the past, that they've actually given themselves to emotionally and trusted and all this sort of stuff, have let them down, because they haven't led themselves very well at all, these men, and they haven't shown up at a very high level, and they haven't been decisive, and they haven't been purposeful, and they don't show a level of respect towards a woman that they should. And so now women they're like, well, I'm not going through that again. There's no way. So if you're not at this level, don't even talk to me. Right? And so then you have the men who are like, well, far out. What do you want? We've only just met, right? And already you're asking me how much I earn. I've heard these stories, right? First and second dates, women are asking, what's your salary? How much do you earn? What's your dreams for the future? What do you want to do? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? It's like a job interview, right? And I don't necessarily have anything against that, as long as both people are kind of on the same page, and it's a communication piece around, what do you want out of life and what do I want out of life? And are we kind of on the same path here? And can we find an intersection somewhere? And do we want to? It's very different to saying, well, here's my list and let's go down and see if you tick them all off. Right?
And there's, on the other side of that as well, there's men that have been completely broken in a process. Where
totally.
they've lost emotionally hugely, and so there's that as well, that they're looking for somebody who's not going to emaciate them, not going to be unkind. They're looking for somebody who's going to be really nice. And so then women meet those guys, and it's kind of like, oh, it's too wishy-washy. There's not enough power there. And so you've got all of these different dynamics. But as well, when I read dating app profiles, I just think it's hilarious. People, no baggage. I'm like, come on, are you kidding me? Like, what, am I 10? Like, of course I'm coming with baggage, but what you call baggage, it's just my life experience. And so what I can't bear about dating is when the date becomes like a counseling situation, like it's like therapy. They tell you all of their story, and you're supposed to tell them all your story about how you hate the guy that you were with and what he did to you, and was my ex-wife and what she did to me. Like, it's this kind of competition about how horrible your breakup was, or that it's this kind of therapeutic dump. And that's not okay. If dating is being therapy, if you're finding that you are discussing your last relationship on your first date, it's too early.
Yeah, because you haven't healed from it. And so
too early, but some people
I
never
would
heal
not,
from it.
I would not be good at dating right now. I
Mm.
would not be good if I had to, if whatever happened and I was out there dating right now. I don't think, by the sounds of what I'm hearing of other people's experiences, I think I would be, and I suppose this speaks into the subject, right? First of all, I'd be very discerning about who I actually spent time with. And second of all, if I got any hint in the first 5 or 10, 15 minutes that this was going to be something like what you just described, then I'd be going, thanks for your time.
Mm.
Yeah, see you later.
Mm. Yeah,
I
yeah.
know that's horrible, right? But it's like, I think people are, I think there's a balance between not being forgiving enough and being too forgiving, um, and not having boundaries and having too many boundaries,
Mm.
right?
There's a lot
Around
to be said for meeting somebody and just chatting and just liking them. Just
yeah.
going, I like this guy or I like this woman. And I don't know whether people are turning up with that when they're dating. Are they
I
bringing?
think people are turning up with expectations. I think people are turning up with preconceived expectations of where they think the date is going to go and who they think the person is. And that's all, as we know, an unconscious projection from their own trauma, past experiences of previous partners. And
Mm.
it's like, and then if they see any hint that that person sitting opposite them in the restaurant, for instance, says, does, feels, looks anything similar to an ex-partner that might have done the wrong thing by them or behaved badly in a relationship, bang, the judgment comes in, and it's just they're a closed book after that.
I said to a friend of mine a few years ago, he was dating different people, and he was saying, "Oh, you know this and that," and I said, "Look, what you can do is turn up like you used to turn up when you were a teenager, where it was just like, do I like you? Do you like me? Are we going to be together forever? Who knows? Like, should we just start dating and see? Should we just go out?" And you don't have this list of what they need to bring you. You are just where you're at. They're at where they're at, and it evolves into whatever it's going to be. You either finish or you go on. And
People might say that could be a waste of time. People might say that's a waste of time, Helen, because I've heard so many people say, "Oh no, there's red flags and warning signs at the very beginning, and if I had have taken notice and listened to my gut, then I wouldn't have ended up 2 years down the track with this person that I knew at the beginning wasn't right for me."
do you know what yeah, but that's the thing. If you meet them and you don't gel and you don't like them, you don't walk away going, I like them. Like, you've got to really like them.
Yeah.
But what I find is that it's like you get there and there's a job to do. It's not fun. There's no fun. And like, I'm pretty fun. So I want to go out and I want to laugh. I want to be able to go, yeah, oh my God, blah, 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 and to enjoy the person's company, not be sitting there going, well, what do you want to see? And what are you going to tell me? And what am I going to ask you? And what are we going to share? And
Yeah.
how are we feeling now? As a little bit of a rundown about where we're at right now. Like, oh my God, can we just chill? Can we just have some fun?
Is that what
And
happens? Is it, Helen? Is that what happens?
oh,
It's almost like, where's my phone? It's almost like, pull out my phone. Hang on a second. Just let me check my list. Oh, yes, 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 yes.
I go on dating
Oh,
apps for
by the
like,
way, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Tell me about that.
I go on dating apps for maybe like a month,
Yep.
and I get slammed with, hey, beautiful, and nice smile, and blah, blah, blah. And I'll ask a question that's slightly deeper than like, and that's it. It's almost crickets, right? So
That's hilarious, Helen.
so yeah, and I probably go on I'm on dating apps for maybe 2 to 3 weeks, and then I'm like, no, I'm done. I'm done.
So
And
what's
then about
what's
once a year I go on
what's
them.
your experience of that like? What's your experience of that? So just be like, if we weren't recording and this wasn't going out to the world, right? What would you say to me as your friend about your experience on a dating app for 2 or 3 weeks? What would you say?
You just get overwhelmed with people, and and I struggle to do the whole just swipe thing based on appearance. So I want to read all of their profiles. And then there's always the guys who are there with their shirt off and no profile. You're like, nah, no, it's not happening. Definitely not. There's the guys who are like, oh God, I've had to take a photo for a dating app. So they're standing in front of their bathroom mirror going, and they just took this selfie, and you're just going, oh my God. And then there's the guy with the fish, you know, as his main.
The guy with the fish. Oh, they just caught the fish.
There's always guys.
Oh my God, do they do that? Do they?
Oh. And so that's a long-standing joke with women. Like, how many men with fish did you get? Like, what is with the fish?
And what does that say? This is how I'm spending my weekends, not with you.
Right. Like, look at me fishing with my fish.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm not into fish. So you're looking for some kind of connection. So even me, who's not looking directly at appearance, I'm looking for something else in the photos that tells me something about them that I might connect with. If they're sitting there drinking, that's generally a no for me, because I don't want to just go out drinking. I'm not a drinker. So, you know, for other people, they're like, oh my God, I like finding somebody who's looks like they're having a bit of a party. They've got a few friends around, they've got a drink. That's them. So it does work to connect with the right people. But so I read the profile, and of course I'm looking for somebody who's, you know, willing to connect on a deeper level. But
so I might ask you then, out of 100 men that you might see, not go out on a date with, but see their profiles, how many of those men do you think that you may look closer at?
Oh, probably about 10. And you know, there'd be like 500 people or something, and you'd look at about 10. But as well, people who send you compliments and then you don't return their message because it is overwhelming, then they'll send you a message going, oh, well then, thanks for ignoring me. You must think you're pretty hot. And I just think, oh my God. And so it can feel pretty awful. And
so out of
I would instantly say, look, I'm not good at small talk, so I find this difficult. I instantly just break it down, you know.
And you know what the projection is then? Thank God I dodged a bullet. She sounds like a real hard ass.
Yeah.
Right. So isn't it interesting? So you're saying out of 500 profiles, you might look a little bit closer at 10.
But probably, Michael, there'd be a couple of hundred that I wouldn't even look at. Like, they just like it. When a woman goes on a dating app, you just get overwhelmed.
Isn't that interesting?
It's like almost like new meat or something. I don't know, but I find it overwhelming. And then that part of me that feels like I'm devaluing people by not commenting or by not returning, that part actually I struggle with. Like, there's a point where you dehumanize people in apps, and people become desensitized to it being another human on the end of that, who's wanting connection and love and attention and wants to feel good about themselves. And so I see all of, because I'm a feeler like that, so I see all of that side of it, and I don't want to insult people by not replying, but I also have strong boundaries on who I am as a woman, and I'm not here to make you feel happy. That's not for me. So there's these kind of like,
isn't it interesting
things?
Just that 5 minutes of reflection or 10 minutes of reflection of your experience. I can just imagine then by the time you actually get to a date, from going through all of that, and then getting to an actual date where you're sitting down with someone, what a process. What a process. And then you've gone through, you know, one stage and then another stage, and then it's like the person's jumped over all of these hoops just to get to a date, right? Whether it's the man or the woman, and they've already built up this expectation within them of what that date's going to be like and what that person might be like based on their chat on whatever app it's been, right?
Well, last year, I just thought, okay, I'm just going to go on dates. I'm just going, because this one lady I know, she's like, oh my God, I just roll through them. When I'm looking for a boyfriend, I just roll through them. I might do 4 or 5 dates a week. And I'm like, what? So I was like, okay, I'm just going to be open. I'm just going to date. Right.
Just take the production line approach.
I just did 3, and like over like a couple of weeks. And then I had to halt it. One chap the next day sent me a 25-minute long WhatsApp message that was just too much for me. It was full of I was just like,
25 minutes.
you know, and
what was that all about? What was that all about?
Oh,
Was that pouring his heart out?
And there was a lot of manipulation in it as well. That, like, you know, and so, you know, I want you to get back to me and address that. You know, that it was, it was seeking. It was seeking, and it was very uncomfortable for me. I was like, actually, this is not going to work for me. And then there was another person that was just lovely, but I was an agony aunt, you know. And then there was another person that.
So just explain quickly to people who may not understand the reference. What's an agony aunt?
Oh, I just became a therapist.
Yep. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yep. And the thing is with me is my heart goes out to people. Like, you know, I didn't think less of him. I thought he was lovely, but I want somebody who's really not in that place in their life, you know?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
And then there was another person that just had no class whatsoever. Just no class. And
it sounds to me like...
And I just was like, you know, this whole kind of like 4 a week, I did 3 in a fortnight. And I've not been on a dating app since, and that was over a year ago.
It sounds to me like there's a lot of people out there that need to do a lot of inner work.
Yes.
Inner work, healing from their past traumas, their hurts, their resentments, their bitterness, their experiences, and really create a level of awareness around all of that, so that they can go back out into the world and perhaps attract somebody. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, Helen. We could go on about this forever, I think. I know I could, because I'm very, very curious, because, you know, I've been a relationship coach as well for years, like 12 years. And what I've noticed is that people get into relationships unconsciously, and then they stay in them unconsciously, and then they separate unconsciously, right? And not many people have an awareness around what they're actually doing, the choices they're making, what they're getting themselves into, who they are as they're navigating dating or a relationship. And I think this is why I'm pretty confident this is why people show up superficially on dates, and even throughout their whole relationship. Throughout their whole relationship, you generally don't get a level of awareness and vulnerability and sharing and communication that is conducive with a depth of connection that people actually want.
This is why I divorce coach for men.
Yeah.
I find it so beautiful when my clients come to me in the middle of their divorce, and we emotionally work through the divorce so that they come out really clear of that divorce process, and they feel that they've participated in each part of the process, and they've grieved, expressed, they've grown through the process. And then we move into that redating situation, and then deal with the triggers and the patterns that come up when they start dating again. And that's the guy who's learning through the process of divorce. And that's why I love doing what I'm doing. And that's why I honor the men who come to me so very much, because people aren't doing it. People aren't doing the work. They prefer to be the victim. They prefer to be in their wounded body. It's easier to be that guy, even though it sets you up for a world of discomfort and unhappiness. It seems easier, whereas this kind of short, kind of intense period of hard work and really holding the difficulty, like then to watch somebody in a really lovely relationship and in being able to communicate properly, with better relationships with their children, I just think it should almost be compulsory to have a divorce coach. It should, because we're just sending out wounded people who haven't healed from their divorce for years and years and years onto dating sites. You know, because I meet them, and women the same. You know, I've got a lot of my friends, I've got quite a few friends who are dating coaches, and their concentration is on women.
Yeah.
And that's why I work with men, because there are so much concentration on women supporting women through divorce. And that's why I chose to do the opposite, because both sides need support. Because we both want to come together in new relationships at the end.
Yep.
And this is the problem. It's the woundings, and it's all of the old patterns, and they're just repeating.
Which people call that's what people call baggage, right? All that stuff. So going in. So what I think is both people, men and both genders, are going into this with fear. You know, they're going into this with fear. That's what it is, based on their past experiences and their unhealed trauma. Women are going in with fear of, I'm not going to put up with that sort of thing ever again, right? And so they have lofty standards that unconsciously they know most men won't be able to meet, or at least won't be able to maintain and sustain over a period of time, which then, of course, becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. There's no good men out there, right? And so then you've got the other, then you've got the men who are going into this fearful of being themselves, because maybe that's not good enough because it wasn't in my past relationships. So where's the evidence that I'll be good enough in the next one? And so they put on all the airs and graces and the James Bond and the this and that and everything else. And of course, then they can't maintain that. And unconsciously, they also, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because there's no women out there that will just accept me for who I am. Right. And then nobody ends up with anyone.
And in the middle of that as well, there's the self-esteem issue of that person around how they feel about their own status and their own ego and how they appear to the world. So the fear is like, oh, this person doesn't look like this, so what are other people going to think? They're not even thinking about, how does this person make me feel? There's all about, what that person looks like, what their appearance is. And look, and I mean, I talk to people all day who would tell me what they don't want. And they always start with appearance.
It's always that, isn't it?
And so that is also based on fear about what other people will think of that person. And
plus we have all these beliefs that if someone doesn't have, if a man doesn't have a reasonably chiseled physique, let's say, then he obviously doesn't look after himself. Right? And if a woman's a little bit overweight, then she obviously doesn't look after herself.
Which is just modern language for, I don't find you attractive.
Yep.
It really is.
And my standards are higher than who you are. And that's really sad. I think that speaks into the topic, isn't it? The superficiality of dating and many relationships too, not just dating, but many relationships. Because if we start dating that way and that turns into a relationship at some point, then, we can't expect to get a different result than what we started with. So if we're going to start with superficiality, then we'll carry that through our relationship, and that's how it's going to end. And the reason for, ending the relationship at some point in the future is going to be for some superficial reason. And I know there's going to be people out there listening to this and going, well, what happens if during the relationship they just let themselves go and all of a sudden they're 150 kilos? Well, okay, that doesn't happen just like that. That happens over a period of time, and there's usually signs.
And there's mental health in there, because people don't let themselves go to that if there's not something else going on within them.
Yeah, absolutely. And generally that is a co-created experience. It's not just that person deciding, oh, well, I'm going to be depressed for the next 5 years because that's just how I feel. It's like, no, there's environmental factors here as well. There's Anyway, you and I could talk about this forever, but we can't.
Absolutely. It's massive.
It is massive. So I think how we could summarize this is, if you're out there in the dating world and you are seeking to meet someone, then the best possible approach is to show up genuinely and authentically in that moment. No airs and graces, no superficiality, and expect from others what you're willing to provide as well, and no more. That's what I might say.
Yeah. Confident and kind, really.
Confident and kind, yeah.
Confident and kind. And if you can show up with confidence and kindness, pretty much other things take care of themselves.
Another good discussion, Helen.
Indeed. One close to my heart today.
Yeah, I'll bet. I would actually like to pick out a few areas that we started sort of touching on. We do this every week. We have these subjects and then we touch on things and we kind of gloss over them and then move on. I'd love to pick out bits of that discussion and go deeper. But we'll do that at some point. All right. Thank you for joining Helen and I again on another episode of King Arthur and the Lady of the Lake, and we will see you next week.
Awesome. See you, everyone.